Right, here I want to talk a little bit about the I want to talk about some of the contemporary issues here in the Middle East politically that really came after James Gelman could write about in his book. It came out in October 2023, the second edition, and that's the same month that there was the Hamas attack on Israel that led then Israel to attack Gaza and try to root Hamas out of that area. That fighting has mostly stopped here in early 2026. It was about a 2-year war, and it was very much on the world stage and very much a part of the controversies and everything. One thing I want to show you about that is a little bit how maps can be used, and they can depend a great deal on who makes them. This is a map issued by the Israeli government that shows the sort of the official boundaries of Israel, and it shows Gaza in the Middle East. Gaza and the West Bank differently. Here we see this territory is administered by Israel, and yet is not under full Israeli authority. It is under Israeli sovereignty, you might say, but there's a regional government here that's supposed to rule. The Palestinian Authority is what it's called. Here you have the Golan Heights, which was taken from Syria in the 1967 war. All these areas were actually taken in the 1967 war between Israel and its Arab neighbors, when there was possibility of war coming. Israel attacked first to forestall that, and ended up with expanded territory, and even got the Sinai Peninsula, though they later gave that back to Egypt. What is this map really saying here? Well, it's got the official boundaries with these disputed or occupied territories. Gaza is a different color because, yes, it's still ruled by Israel, and yet it's also they haven't really had, they withdrew in 2005, so they have this kind of it's overall authority, and yet it's governed by Gazan authorities. It's been Hamas, the Islamist party there, since about 2007 or so, that has governed. The West Bank is a different color. One of the things that this wants to really emphasize too is that Israel is not a huge country, and here we have the 9 miles from the Mediterranean Sea to the edge of the West Bank. If there were to be a future Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza, one of the things that the Israeli government wants to emphasize is that this would be very difficult for Israel to govern. Right? This is a chunk out of Israel, a narrow country, and so I think that's part of what the Israeli government wants to communicate with that. On the other hand, you have a map here issued by Palestinian activists, right, who want to show the cultural and demographic and settlement changes here. What they want to show is that under the Ottoman mandate, there were some small Jewish communities, and that the Zionist immigrants that had come, bought land, settled, also evicted people off the land that they bought. As far as I understand, I'm sure there was also some other things that went on too at some point, even being humans. But you can see in 1918 there was a small territory that was really Jewish or Zionist in terms of the Zionist immigrants, and that expands by 1947. Those communities expand. In 1960, you have Israel is actually an independent country now. Okay, and here they want to show that in the by 2017 there have been a lot of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Okay, and so here this is emphasizing what they would see as a shrinking sovereignty and control of Palestinian Arabs over their homeland. Okay, and so you can see two maps of the same place with different purposes. Okay, and there's a lot more to think about here, but it shows you a little bit about that. There's another aspect of things here, which is these competing blocks. Okay, and Galvin talks about this in the modern Middle East. And this map is, from before the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, but it gives you some idea of what's going on here. You can see these three blocks. On the one hand, what Policy Tensor here calls the economist intelligence calls the status quo U.S. allies. That's Egypt, Israel, Saudi Arabia, would be the main three here, and the United Arab Emirates. Okay, and so there we have this idea here of these countries are basically friendly with the U.S. They get along with each other all right. Saudi Arabia and Israel don't have a great relationship, maybe to some degree more, but they're both basically U.S. allies. They don't want huge changes in the region. Israel and Egypt have had a relationship of a treaty since 1979, roughly. Okay. Now, on the other hand, there's this idea of the resistance bloc, or this Iran-led bloc. Iran being the anchor of that. It's a powerful country in the region. And then for a long time, Syria and Lebanon were a part of this as well. Okay. But Iran is under the Islamic Republic regime has been very much opposed to the United States, which it saw as being bad for the region, and it had been allied with the former the United States had been allied with the former Iranian regime, and had supported it, and the Iranian revolutionary regime since 1979 has been very opposed to the United States. Had this alliance with Syria, and then through the Hezbollah, especially, which is a combination of a political party and militia and social service group, as James Galvin talks about, the Shia Arabs in, not all of them, many, but it's a Shia Arab group in Lebanon. And then also with its allies in Iraq. Iraq, you can see, is striped here because it's got influences of both. On the one hand, there's Iraqis that are allied, like Iraqi groups that are allied more with the United States, and others that are more aligned with Iran. Okay, and that's been a problem ever for Iraq, the stability there ever since the United States invasion and withdrawal in 2003. Now, on the other hand, we've got a red bloc here, which is the Islamist-leaning bloc. And here we have Turkey and Qatar. You can see there are Turkey and Qatar support some of the groups in Yemen. So does Saudi Arabia. Turkey and Qatar support some of the groups in Libya and in Tunisia. So does the U.S.-led bloc. And so these groups with these countries with stripes it's undetermined right now. There's instability. There's factions there, and so Turkey and Qatar tend to be more of supportive of, as we've seen, Islamist groups. In other words, groups that want to increase Islamic involvement and in politics and to make these countries more Islamic. Okay. Groups like the Muslim Brotherhood and others. Okay. Now, how does this all change? Well, the Israeli attack on Gaza meant that Hamas was under assault in Israel, and Hamas had been patronized by Iran for a long time. Okay, even though Hamas was Sunni Muslim and Iran is led by Shia Muslims, there was still a common enemy in Israel as they saw it. Well, Hamas has been very badly damaged in this war over the last couple of years. At the same time, there was also tension between Israel and Lebanon, and especially with Israel and Hezbollah. And Israel really, really badly damaged Hezbollah as well. Okay, it killed the top leader. It had something where over the past couple of years, they found created some pagers that had explosives in them. A lot of them blew up and killed Hezbollah members. And then Syria collapsed. Okay, so if you think about what's happened over the past couple of years, Hamas, Iran's ally in Hamas, has been badly damaged. Hezbollah has been badly damaged, and its ally in Syria has collapsed. Okay, and the group the outside power that's probably benefited the most from the Syrian regime collapsing is probably Turkey. Okay. So here's a map from the Institute for Study of War. A YouTube commentator told me I need to, in my last video, I should be looking at the Institute for Study of War. It has the most up-to-date map, so I want to thank that person. And here we can see, as of January 18th anyway, in purple, we see the Kurdish forces that are Kurdish aligned. Those tend to be U.S. friendly. The Turkish-backed groups here, also along the Turkish border, the government forces here in brown, and so there's been conflict between the government forces and the government forces and the Kurds. We're going to have to see what happens in Syria, but just in the last couple of years, that power block arrangement that I showed you has really changed. I would say Iran is at a much weaker point. They've also had their nuclear program, nuclear sites bombed by the U.S. They've had a lot of blows from both the U.S. and Israel in the past 5 years, maybe the past 6 years, I should say. And so we're going to see what this means for the larger political situation in the Middle East.